Stephen Clark is a product. You see, this is one of the problems. Stephen Clark is a product of fatherless Black America, man. You can see the behavior of this young, Stephen Clark's young brother. It's a shame, all this what you see in Black America is a product of single motherhood and lack of fathers for black children. You can see the behavior of this young brother of Stephen Clark. Look at the way this young brother behaves in front of the media. Instead of behaving in a decent... Look, I know that this young brother has lost his brother. He has lost his brother, but at the moment, a lot of factors needs to apply when something like this, when tragedy like this happens, especially for black people. There is a lack of black fatherhood, and a lot of black people, even in their teens or early or late teens, they don't know how to behave. It's said, especially black young boys, they don't know how to behave. They don't even know what to say and what not to say in front of the media. I mean, look at how this young brother is behaving in front of the media, man. I feel, on the other hand, I know like he's traumatized by the loss of his brother, but at the same time, there's a lack of informative strategy within black people themselves. I don't know whether he's got his mother, or it looks like he doesn't have a family structure. It looks like the young brother was living with his grandmother. Again, a product of black children having fathers in jail and growing up without their fathers, and in the single motherhood families, and it produces this sort of like very sort of like destructive black children in America. It's so sad, because you can see this young brother doesn't know how to behave in front of the media. I would say he's obviously cooning, but for me to really put a blame on this young man, I can see that this young black man is a product of which type of families in America produce this type of young black males. Which type of families produce this type of young black males in America? It's single mother family, single mothers, and a product of lack of fathers and single motherhood, and it produces it's sort of like it's a recipe for disaster. Instead of this young man saying something which is more logical to the media, this young man is actually enforcing the reasons for pretty much this young black man is enforcing, in fact, the reason why this young black man is enforcing the stereotypes of why young black men are killed. Is actually this young black man is enforcing that, because his behavior alone could justify why his brother was taken down. His behavior of this young brother, you can tell what type of family this young man grew up in, and you can tell what type of his brother was actually through him. The behavior of this young black man, you can see how this Stephen Clark's young brother's behavior. You can tell with his behavior, you can tell how Stephen Clark was behaving. Even without even knowing them, you can tell what type of family they're coming from. They come from single mothers families, and a fatherless family. And you can tell that they come from a very damaged family. From the beginning, you can tell why the young black man was killed by just looking at the type of families which produces. I don't want to justify why this young man was killed, but I want to say, what I want to emphasize here is what type of families do these type of black men come from? What type of families? This is what we need to look at. What type of black families produces this type of black men? What type of females or produces this type of black men? And you can tell from this young black man's behavior when he's dealing with the media, he doesn't know. I know he's traumatized by the death of his brother, but just to look at the behavior, the coonery, the coonish nature of this young black man, you can tell that he doesn't come from a knowledge background. You can tell he doesn't come from a educated background. You can tell he doesn't come from you can tell he comes from a ghetto, trashy, single motherhood, ratchet, sort of like black single mother, damaged a product. You can tell the type of family from just looking at him, pretty much. And it's said that a lot of black men, instead I wanted to blame this young black man, but at the same time I know already from studying black people in America, I know already what type of black families produce this type of young black men. So instead of me putting a lot of blame on this young black man, instead of putting a lot of blame on this young black man, you can tell that this young black man himself, he's a victim of his own background. You see, a victim of his own background. He doesn't know what to say. He's traumatized. His mind is all over. He lacks a form of sort of like there is no leadership in his family. You can tell there is no elderly black man in his family. There is no one to say, son, chill out. This is what we need to do. Son, relax. I know you lost your brother, but this is what we need to do. This is how we need to behave in front of this media. This is what this media is up for. These are the goals of the media. You as a young black man, this is what you need to say. This lacks, particularly in black family. Black people in America needs to rise up. They need to know it's not a time of emotions now. We no longer live in an emotional time. We have to be strategic. You have to be very informative and strategic. You can't be dumb and stupid. We live in a day and age of which ignorance has no room nowadays. There is no room or space for an ignorant person. We live in a very, very objective, goal-oriented situation of which there is no medium space. There is either you're up or you're down. And most of the black people need to understand where they are living, how they are living, circumstances and the conditions of places they are living all over the world. At least you can see from this young black man that there is a lack of elderly black males. There is a lack of, older black males in this young man's situation. Not only him, his deceased brother grew up in the same situation. He lacked a lot of, guidance. You can see these are product of single motherhood in America. You can tell these persons come from a single black woman doesn't know anything. Black women, majority of black women in America. You see, the problem with the black females in America is that they don't know that they don't know. And it's very dangerous. If you don't know that you don't know, that means you will never be educated. You will never search for the knowledge, the type of knowledge you need. Most of the black people having a PhD degree or a bachelor's degree or whatever, these are educational papers which mean nothing into the survival of black males or black people. Having a bachelor's degree is like having a bachelor's degree of dealing with dolphins. Real life, dolphin in the city. So you will still need a type of information, a type of knowledge of living in places where you are living. It's nothing to do with education at all. A lot of black children lack the type of knowledge they need to survive in places they are surviving. A lot of black children, especially in America, they lack the type of knowledge which actually guides them and show them which type of places you are living, where you are living, what type of information you need, what type of knowledge you need. A lot of black children don't have that. Living in one of the most powerful, richest country like America does not necessarily mean black children are getting the best for what they need. They're not getting the best. You can get the best of education you don't need and still become a victim of your own circumstances, of your surroundings, in fact. You see what I'm saying? It's like if you have got a knowledge of living in the North Pole full of ice sheet, but you live in the Sahara Desert, what's the point of having a good knowledge, a very strong knowledge of living in the North Pole full of ice, full of snow and ice, when you're living in the Sahara Desert? You know what I mean? It doesn't mean anything. So you would need a very or your type of knowledge according to your circumstances. That is called education. The type of knowledge you need according to your circumstance. You don't just, you see, a lot of education people get is not the education they need to survive. It's just a random education, just for the sake of it. Having a lot of papers, I've got a bachelor's degree and this and that. But the type of, in the places you live, you need a type of knowledge of places you live. And the circumstances are different each and every place on earth. You know what I mean? Being an expert in dealing with snow in a desert area, you will still become a victim of the desert. If the knowledge you have is the knowledge of dealing with snow in the North Pole or South Pole of the planet, and you live in the Sahara Desert, what is that knowledge going to give? What is that knowledge going to do to you when you live in the Sahara Desert? You become useless. With degrees and diplomas and all these educational papers with it in your hands, you will still become a victim. You see what I'm saying? So you need a specific type of knowledge for your own circumstances, especially for black people living in America. They need a certain type of knowledge, sort of like a black-oriented knowledge for black children, particularly black boys. I would say black children altogether. They need goal, or sort of like a black-oriented education, black-oriented information, especially for black children as they grow up. They need a certain type of information and knowledge according to the places and the circumstances they find themselves in. A lot of black children don't have that. It doesn't make, you see, if you're teaching a black child and an Asian child and a Portuguese child and a Greek child, most of these children are not going to be affected, but the black child is going to be affected. Why? Because the circumstances or the knowledge given is random, but then it benefits those who is meant to benefit. And then for black children, they won't benefit because the knowledge for them, they need a different type of knowledge, a different type of education, which they cannot receive in a blanket form of say, oh, let's just educate all children. You can't educate all children like that. You can't take a lion, a leopard, a tiger, and a cheetah and say, well, both of these creatures are cats. Guess what? Both of these creatures are cats. Each and every one of them have got different types of needs, different type of, they're all specialists in that different, in that different condition. Most of them need a different type of circumstances in order to thrive. A cheetah needs a bare land with the grassland in order for it to be effective to survive. A lion needs a bush or whatever, jungle. He can thrive there. A leopard needs a place where there is trees to climb in. You see what I'm saying? So you can't just say, well, these are both cats, they'll just thrive in one place. They just throw a meat, but they're just going to thrive. They know, because the leopard will need a tree in order to eat. It feeds on trees. A lion is fine, he can feed down on the jungle. A cheetah needs a different place where there is grass and flat land to chase prey and hunt. So you need to understand that although these animals are both cheetahs, they need different type of circumstances for them to survive. You can't just blanket put them. This is why this is what the problem in Black America. A lot of black children are not being educated. Even the education, I wouldn't say education, I would say black children need a different type of education as they grow. Not just education per se. They need a different type of, they need a black-centered education. Black-centered education for them, for their circumstances in the country in which they survive. They need that. A lot of black children, they need that. They need a type of knowledge, type of information, type of education which is very centered for their circumstances. Not just a blanket education, but a circumstances which covers the way they live, the surroundings, covers also the neighborhoods which they survive. Whether you call them ghetto or plus, they need an education which actually shares the type of living circumstances they find themselves in. You know what I'm saying? Not just books alone, but they need to connect your living circumstance. If you find yourself in a situation like this, dealing with maybe police or dealing with this, what do you need to do in the circumstances like this and this? The black children need the type of knowledge. They need the type of knowledge to say, well, if you find yourself living in the ghetto, where there is gangs, there is violence, there is this and that, what type of information do you need living in a place like that? What type of knowledge do you need to learn? How do you need to behave in places like this? You know what I'm saying? What do you need? How do you need to engage in places like that? What are do's and don'ts of places like this? What do you need to survive? A lot of black children need the type of education which is centered to their living circumstances, not just the books alone. They also need the information on their living ways, on the living condition. In fact, I would say guidance on living conditions, like how do you interact within one another as black people? How do you interact with other black people from this part to this part? A lot of black children need a lot of information and goal-oriented type of education for themselves, which is centered specifically. I would say a black-centered education, specific. You know what I'm? Because other children who are not black are not going to be affected by the situation like that. They're going to be immune. But a black child is going to be affected. You see what I'm saying? You can't teach a black child who is scared of leaving his own neighborhood. And some children who are not black, who are not facing something like that. So the most important thing I want to know is that black men needs to be there for their children. Not only for their children, black men needs to find a way, both black men and black women, they need to compromise and stop the nonsense of sort of like self-hating each other and things like that. They need to be open and understanding when it comes to raising black children. Even if a black man doesn't want a black woman or a black woman doesn't, vice versa. If they've got children, they need to come to an agreement to say, okay, what's good for our children? We need to stop our nonsense and do something good for our children. And black men and women need to come to a solution to say, well, you might not like each other, but there must be a way to say for black children to prevent things like Stephen Clark. You need a way to teach black children. You can tell from this young black man, Stephen Clark's young brother, he doesn't know what to say. He pretty much sees the media in front of him. He doesn't know what to say. You can actually see the emotions. See, black people needs to cut the emotions out. You need to cut the emotions completely out. You need a different way of thinking. You need to control your emotions. No matter what tragedy you find yourself in. I know it's tough. It's a very tough thing. But there must be older black males needs to quickly intervene in places like this. They need to quickly intervene in places of tragedy like this and find a victim, black mother or black grandmother. Bring them together and say, this is what you need to, before you even deal with the media. Before you even deal with the media, they need to group together. Like this young black man, you can tell he does not have any guidance altogether. This young black man, Stephen Clark's young brother, has no guidance at all. He went into this meeting, jumping all over, talking all kinds of nonsense. All kind of nonsense. You know what I'm saying? Why doing things like that? All kind of nonsense. And you can tell that if a tragedy like this happen, you need to group together as a family. Group together. What needs to be said in the media and what's not to be said. They're supposed not to leave that young black man to go on the media and say all the kind of nonsense he's saying. And all the nonsense he's saying is going to be used against him in the future. All this young black man's behavior is recorded. In the future, they're going to say this young black man was on drugs or was on this or was on that. And it's going to be justified again to take him out again. You need to understand what's going on here. So, a lot of black men need to understand when there is this type of tragedy, you need to bring this family, wherever there is a victim, they need to unite with the victim family and come to a conclusion of discussing and coming out with a strategy of how they need to behave in the media, what they need to say, what they need not to say. Because anything you say could be used against you. It's just the way it is. For good or for worse. Yes, anything you say could be used against you for good or for worse. This is why a lot of black men, you need to be there for your families. I'm sorry. For a lot of black men, you need to be there. This young brother, I wanted to blame this young brother, but I can tell this young brother he's actually a victim of his own circumstances. You see, I wanted to go against him just by looking at this young brother going into this meeting hall and saying all this trash talk. Like, I wanted to blame him, like, oh my God, is this what this young man is saying? But at the same time, I quickly, because I've studied black Americans, I quickly came to a conclusion like, oh no, I can't blame this young black man. He's actually a product of his own circumstances. He's a victim of his own surroundings. To blame him would be putting too much load on this young man. You see, people, what they say can actually reveal how far they are upstairs here, and how they were raised, and what type of knowledge, whether they are shallow or very informative, whether they are wise or point blank dumb. What someone says can actually reveal that. So this is why when I listened to this young black man, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I wanted to blame this young black man. But I quickly studied this young man, and I quickly came to a conclusion. This young black man is actually a product of his own condition of living, his own background, his own upbringing. So I started feeling sorry for him. Despite looking at him trash talking, he doesn't know what to say. Whether he's talking to black people, or he's talking to white people, or he's talking to the media, he completely has no what to say. He has no idea what to say. He's completely lost. So this is why I say to a lot of black men, like, I wanted to blame this young man, but no. It's a circumstances. I can tell which time. You can look at someone and actually tell what type of circumstances and background the person is coming from what they say. From what they say, you can see, oh my God, this person is talking like this. You can tell what type of conditions would lead to a young black man talking this trash talk. Single motherhood families, where there is no males whatsoever. So the only thing he knows is that single mother, which 9 out of 10 is the worst. Most black children come from single mothers, who 9 out of 10 of them are actually worse than their own children. And you can tell what type of children are they going to produce. You see what I'm saying? So that's the problem. This is why I say, for black men, a lot of things, black men needs to have a dialogue. Black men needs to rise up and stop the nonsense and understand what needs to be said. If there's something like this happen, like this tragedy of Stephen Clark, a lot of black men needs to come to a conclusion. Unite. They need to unite, come to a strategy, what the family, the victim needs to say, especially to the media. You know what I mean? If you're dealing with the media, what you need to say and what they don't need to say. Instead of allowing these youngsters, where was the adult? And people needs to sort of like calm down and come with a strategy. I know it's painful, especially if you lost a loved one. You're still traumatized. But at the same time, what you say can be used against you in the future. You see what I'm saying? So at the same time is that they need to come to a conclusion and say, well, this is what you need to say in front of the media. This is what you don't need to say. This is what you need to say. Rather than leaving this young man to come and trash talk and talk all this kind of nonsense. Cooning, acting like the coon, but at the same time, you can look at him and feel sorry at him at the same time, but at the same time you can conclude what type of situation do this type of young men come from. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I want to say. That a lot of black men needs to come to a conclusion of teaching young black males what needs to be said. They need to calm their emotions. The world is not ruled by emotion. The world is a do or die place. It's a do or die. It's a dog eat dog world. So you need to calm your emotions. A lot of them needs to calm your emotions. And a lot of black men needs to calm their emotions. Don't put your emotions first. Be logic and strategic. Objectives and see what do you need to say. You can sit down and think, if I say this, what kind of objective is going to come out from what I say? What am I trying to say? What are the results? How are people going to receive this message, and what is going to... You need to be strategic in what you say, especially before you deal with the media. No matter what, before you deal with the media is there to... They can twist whatever you say, but you need to be strategic in what you're saying, especially when you're dealing with the media. They can twist everything you say. I can see the behavior of this young black man, Stephen Clark's his young brother. I wanted to blame him, but I can't blame him, because I know what type of background the young black man come from. You know what I'm saying? So niggas needs to rise up and stop. They need to understand, especially black men older, especially if you find yourself above the age of 30. You need to change completely. Your behavior needs to completely change, especially when you're dealing with people. You need to understand what kind of the condition, what type of place you are. What is your circumstances? People don't care about you being the victim. They care about what they want to gain with you. They don't care about you being the victim. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of black men needs to intervene, especially when they're dealing with women. Black women don't know that they don't know. That's the problem with black women. Whether they're educated or not, an educated woman is equivalent to a child or a baby. It's knowledge. As far as the reality is concerned. Males has to intervene and reason. You saw them. Women don't know that they're stupid. It's good. Most women were designed to be stupid in order for a man to be in control. This is why a lot of blame, you can't put it on black women. Majority of black women, they don't know. They think they're smart. They think they're educated. They think that since they think they're educated somehow, it's going to mean anything. It's not going to mean anything in a world which is ruled by males. You see what I'm saying? So this is why I say for black men, they need to intervene in situations of tragedy like this, and bring the family which is a victim and talk with that family and say, when you're dealing with the media, this is what you need to say. This is what you don't need to say. A lot of black people, they're victims of their own circumstances. It's worse for children. They can't help it but express their own reality in a bad way. You know what I'm saying? So what I want to say is simply that a lot of black men needs to understand that the majority of black women, especially in America, they're not, I would say, they're not educated in the knowledge they need. They're educated in the knowledge they don't need. They're educated in the knowledge they don't need. That's like someone with the knowledge of living in the North Pole, where there is full of snow and ice. In the North Pole, full of snow and ice. And you have got knowledge of living in the snow and ice in the North Pole or South Pole of the planet. But you find yourself in the Sahara Desert. That's the type of knowledge and education black female have in America. Wrong education for your survival, wrong education for the place you live in, wrong education for what you need to survive, wrong education for everything you need to exist on this planet. You have completely wrong information, wrong education, wrong diplomas, wrong degree for the circumstances you live. You know what I'm saying? It's like having a knowledge and education and information of living in the Sahara Desert, but you live in the North Pole, full of snow. You will still become a victim, because what you have, you don't need it in the places you live. That's the situation you see a lot of black women in America. They think they're education, but then they have no idea. This is why their education doesn't help them, their circumstances. They remain permanent victim, despite telling, I'm educated black woman, I'm educated black woman. But look at their circumstances and the way they live. Just look at their circumstances. Single motherhood, epidemic, this and that. You know what I'm saying? And the problem is the victims are the children. So this is why I say for a lot of black men, black men needs to rise up the bar. They need to rise and actually be strategic, objectives. They must be goal oriented. You must be goal oriented, like what do you need to achieve first. Before you say things, you must say, what do I need to achieve? What is my goal? What is my objectives before I say anything? You see what I'm saying? This is why this young black man needed to be brought down and say, young men, when I'm dealing with the media's goals is A, B, and C. This is what they're after. They don't care whether you are a victim or not. Young men, this is what they're saying. This is their goals. You need to say A, B, and C. This is what you need to say. Your goals as a young black man, this is what you need to say to them. This is what you need to say. You need to say A, you need to say B. Everything else, shut the hell up. You know what I'm saying? And in order for young black men to be taught that they need black man presence, you know what I'm saying? And black man presence needs to be black men with knowledge of knowing what to say or who. They need to be very. This is why I talk about black must have a black oriented education. You need a black oriented education in everything, in the circumstances you live, in the neighborhood you live, in the places you need a type of education centered for your survival in countries you find yourself in. You know what I'm saying? You need to have that type of knowledge of your circumstances. Your circumstances. If you find yourself in places where you know this is the place I live in, these are the conditions which I face, then you need the type of education which is black oriented according to the circumstances you live in. You know what I'm saying? A lot of black children need that, especially in America. They need that. You know what I'm saying? Teaching black kids with all types of races of people and saying black children are going to be victims in circumstances like that. This is the circumstance you see in America, where black children are being taught with every G.I. Joe, when in reality the victims are mostly the black kids. You know what I'm saying? This is why I say a lot of black men needs to be. I wanted to blame this young man, but I'm not going to blame this young black man. And the deceased guy, STEPHON Clark, again, he himself, I was looking at his own Instagram videos and all these other things, what he was talking about black women and this and that. You can tell he was also a victim. Before he died, this young man, or STEPHON Clark, before he died, he was also a victim already. He himself was also a victim. A victim was a victim before he died. You know what I'm saying? He was a victim of what I call nasty black females, or he has been affected a lot by a lot of black females, which almost 9 in 10 black males born in America have also been affected by black females. 9 out of 10. So he was also a victim. Before he died, he was a victim of his, circumstances. Before he even became a victim of police, he was already a victim already. You can tell by what he was saying, this guy. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem. This is what I was saying. Like, a lot of black men needs to step up the bar. A lot of black men needs to step up the bar, because at the moment, black men are not. You find black men in churches and all this stuff. If you are a black man, you find yourself in churches, you must turn a church into a black information center. You know what I'm saying? Of what needs to be said to black people. Turn your church into a black information center. Turn those churches you find yourself in, whether they're mega churches, into black information centers. Don't just make them churches and waffle this God nonsense and this Jesus Christ nonsense. Be realistic and strategic in the circumstances and the countries you find yourself in. You know what I'm saying? A lot of black males lack a lot of knowledge. Being religious and stupid is the worst thing for a black man nowadays. Being so stupid and religious, because religion is the worst thing for a black man. None of our ancestors were religious. Religion, whether you go for Quran or Christianity, none of these two things are black oriented. They were never black. Christianity come from Europe, Quran or Muslim come from the Arab countries. Both of them are Caucasian. They're just different type of Caucasian. Nothing is black. This is why I hate about religion. Nothing is black. I don't like religion at all. None of them are black. None of them are black oriented. In fact, they're not black at all. They were never produced by a black man. A black man never introduced religion at all. You see? These things came to Africa 500 years ago during slavery. So this is why religion, I don't want to talk about it. But what I want to talk about is black men needs to be there for their children. Period. They need to be there for their children, and they need to be strategic. You know, what you need to say to your sons, particularly your sons, and the condition they find themselves in. That type of knowledge or education is needed within black community. And black women also needs to be taught that there's type of knowledge which you need to give to your children. It's not going to be the same with anyone. They need a type of education centered for them. You know what I'm saying? That's all I want to say. I'll say to another video. That's all I want to say. I'll end this for now. Thank you. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. But please, subscribe to all my videos. It's very important you do. You know what I'm saying? As a black person, subscribe to my video permanently. It's important you do. It's very important you do. Thank you.